Well, looking at the tape, thought our guys did a great job. Kind of everything I'd said after the game, you know, that Colorado started fast and kind of hung in there, weathered the storm, and settled down on defense and played really good defense, and then in the second half got a little more going with the run game on offense and did what we needed to win. I thought there were some individuals that made some really, really good plays, and you could see those guys stepping up and getting better. You know, it was awesome to see Quentin Pounds, you know, make a catch like that. We've seen him make some really big plays in practice, and you can kind of feel him coming on, and so it was good to get confidence in the game, making him play like that in the game. And thought Vita Vea, you know, was playing at a really, really high level, not only on special teams but on defense. And you know, Miles Bryant doing a good job, Jordan Miller getting 2 interceptions. I mean, there's just a lot of guys playing good. I thought our offensive line played well. So yeah, it was a good game. It was a good game to build on as we move forward.
This slow start, I guess, offensively, is there any concern there at all, or is that just whatever, you finish the game the way you want? So
yeah, I mean, I think everybody's trying to figure out how to start fast. No one wants to come out there and, you know, it's a little bit like turnovers and those type of things. I mean, and you know, I don't really have the answer there. We'd like to start faster for sure, and 2 out of the 4 games we kind of started fast, but the first one and this one we didn't. Maybe it has something to do with being on the road, I don't know, and emotions and being just different. But we'll continue to pay attention to it and try to figure that out.
Did you sense a game like this in a run game coming, or do you feel like they really took a step from it?
Well, I think the run game, like I keep saying that, is, you know, the run game's not always pretty. It's, you know, you need all those guys on the same page, and like I said before, and then when they are on the same page and block it pretty clean, the running back still has to make somebody miss to get something done, and Miles is usually pretty good at that. And we got to call enough runs. I think this is the game that we probably called the most amount of runs, and so you start to get into that rhythm. So, you know, there's multiple factors, but I think we took a step.
What was the game plan with Kamari in terms of filling in for Levon? Or was it literally next man up, or were there some things that you wanted to get accomplished with him?
No, it's, you know, we always have a backup. I mean, heck, a guy could get hurt on the first play or, you know, whatever. And so we kind of always have a guy like who would fill this role if that happens. You know, we use a lot of different personnel groups and those type of things. And, you know, who's similar to this guy that could get it kind of done. So, you know, he's a guy he and LeBron have kind of had similar type roles in terms of being kind of utility guys that they can carry the ball, they can block, they're bigger kind of backs.
What do you want to see out of Tristan this week, and is he still firmly your Togo guy?
Yeah, I mean, we obviously got to get him back into a groove. You know, he's got a very powerful leg. And so we just got to get him going again. You know, those field goals were just a little bit off, but, you know, just obviously with the extra points, you know, he can make those in his sleep, and when we're not, you know, it's a game of confidence.
Is there an opportunity for Van to?
There's an opportunity for everybody at any time. I mean, I've said that 1,000 times. You know, it's a fine line between helping a guy get back into his rhythm and being fair to the team and what we're all about as well. So competition's always ongoing.
What's the status of Chico?
Yeah, Chico. Let me just start with this. You know, I just want to reiterate this again. You know, if we have a long-term injury, I'm usually going to come in here on Monday and say something about it. But if it's week to week, you know, it's a couple weeks, sometimes it's very hard for us to know how long a guy is out. And that's the only reason I don't say that stuff. It's not for our fans. You know, we want our fans to know as much about this program as we can. It's a competitive advantage when that stuff comes out early, like about Byron Murphy. So I look around the country and, you know, all these guys aren't playing, and you see it come out on Saturday, but then it gets out of here early. And it's like we have another, you know, the beat writer for Colorado coming out and saying, hey, these guys are not playing this guy. I mean, that's the only reason. It hurts us when it doesn't come out when we want it. If it's long-term and everybody knows, you know, this is going to be a long time, then we always announce it. But I would just hope that everybody could be on the same page and know when it comes out early, you know, game time decision type stuff. That makes it hard on us. Chico will be out. Chico broke his ankle, and, you know, he's getting, I think they're looking at it, consulting with the doctors today. But we think there's going to be surgery and all that. So, you know, we won't count on Chico for, you know, probably the rest of the season.
What's his chances of being able to redshirt? Have you looked into that? Or?
I think they're going to be really good if that, you know, comes to that. So just do the math, and he's right there.
Did Ryan Bowman earn himself a scholarship?
Ryan Bowman's doing a good job. Really appreciate how that guy's playing, and you know, he's seems the one guy that's kind of always getting around the quarterback and doing a good job with all those things.
How satisfying is it? I mean, obviously, when your guys play well, it's always satisfying, but to have two kids that came through the walk-on program like Miles and Bowman to play.
Yeah. Well, when we, you know, for the most part, when we have guys walk on, I mean, we're hoping that they can get into the mix. I mean, where I came from, we had walk-ons playing the NFL a couple times. So, you know, if we want somebody to walk on here, we're thinking that the guy has a good chance to get on the field and help us win, and that's what that thing's all about. We're not trying to just get guys to be here and take up space.
Chris, when your D-line is playing really well, what does that do? What are you more able to do in terms of the linebacking and whether that's blitzing and the DBs? What's the luxury that you get when the D-line is getting that push?
Well, you get better coverage because you can put more guys into coverage if it just comes from the D-line. If you don't have to send backers and DBs and all those type of things, as soon as you do that, there's going to be more holes or man-to-man coverage in the secondary. So, heck, we'd like to rush two and get pressure, and then we got a lot of answers. So the more that you can, you know, get pressure with four guys, I mean, that gives you a big luxury. We'll always mix it up, but when the D-line can bring pressure without us having to bring extra pressure, that really helps.
Chris, with Chico out, do you feel like you have enough there to just bump guys up, or Selvon potentially maybe move over to take his spot in the offense? How do you kind of just move forward, handle that? For
all those things, you know. I mean, you always hate to lose guys. I mean, it's just, I just feel really bad for, you know, like we all do, for Chico, and I mean that's hard. And you know, guys that are playing well and have worked so hard, and then they're going to be out for long. But that's part of football. And then they just got to stay positive. I mean, I think one of the number one things in terms of getting a guy back, you know, as fast as you can, is their mental approach to it. And, you know, our trainers and doctors would always say that. I mean, just those guys being more upbeat, and it's so hard when you get slugged in the gut like that. And so we really just think about those kids that are going to be out. But after that, it's next man up. That's part of the philosophy of I mean, that is football. That is how it goes. And nobody feels sorry for us at all outside of this building. I mean, we really feel for Chico, but everybody else is throwing a party when they see Chico's not going to be out there. And so the next guy better step up, and that's going to come from multiple guys. I mean, that's how we do it anyways. It's not any one guy, okay, you're the guy. We move parts and pieces around and see who does certain roles well.
Obviously, the last week's a big luxury to have it, and he runs it so well, he ran it really well. And for one play in the Colorado game, who on this roster do you trust?
There are a lot of guys. I mean, I think we got half our receivers that can do it. Most of our running back core can do it. So just move guys around. It's not a huge part of what we do. So we just try to get the ball to our athletes in space, and whatever that means.
Injury. Zine Victor probably had his best game of the year, or best game of the year on Saturday. What did you see from him and coming back and his mental state coming back?
Yeah, you know, I think a lot of guys, and Azim being one, are starting to get their game feet under them, and Azim's running around pretty good, and we move him around a little bit to create some matchups. And he's a physical player, and he showed up pretty good in the game.
Chris, what's your approach with a guy that suffers a long-term injury like that, just one-on-one? Do you kind of wait for some time to pass and you just kind of meet with him and just kind of see where his mind is, or do you go to him immediately just to kind of see where his emotions are? Or how do you usually handle that?
Yeah, I think our guys are so really good with each other that all of our coaches are all eyes and hands on, but sometimes I lay back a little bit, because then everybody kind of gets on with their life and their routine in a couple weeks, and so that's when you really, I think, need to pay attention to them. And it's hard right now, but I think a lot of people will pay attention to our guys that are injured and try to love them up as best they can. But they'll be okay. They're strong guys, and I mean, Chico had a really good demeanor after the game. He really did. I mean, sometimes I kind of shake my head and wish I could be that positive sometimes about things like they were, but it is what it is, and it happens for a reason, and I don't know what the reason is. I mean, that's what Chico says to me, and it's a good demeanor, and he's still got a lot of football to play.
What did you see out of or what did you look at to make the decision to have Austin play in front of Byron or change for him? And then what did you see when
Austin's, he's played, he's been around here for a while, and he's one of those guys that I think could play multiple positions. In high school, I liked him a lot as a running back, and he really wanted to be a DB, and he's awesome on special teams, and so. That's what we see. I mean, I don't know if anyone goes harder than Austin on our entire team. He's still learning the position. He didn't play corner in high school. He's more like a safety, a strong safety. And he's good at that too. And so I think he could do multiple things. It just depends on, the other 4 or 5 guys we play back there with the best combination where you move those guys around. But he could do multiple things.
All the other guys, Andre, Levon, Martin, they're all in the week-to-week category. Is that fair? Mm-hmm. Okay. What did you think of Jake's game overall?
I thought it was solid. I mean, Jake always plays solid, and there's there'll be a couple plays that you're like, wow, that's really good, and people from the stands might not even notice. I mean, there's just so many things that he does for us mentally, getting us in and out of plays and checking the ball down and those things. He didn't have the big numbers that sometimes he does, and there's always a couple plays that you'd like to have back to say, maybe we should have gone there, but I thought he had a solid game.
Do you see progression in him in terms of managing the offense, especially when you guys are on the road, playing in difficult environments? Do you see him making those incremental steps forward?
I do. I mean, he does a great. I can't tell you how much is on that guy's plate. I mean, one time we had an illegal procedure penalty, I think motion Chico out of the backfield, and I think it was on us at quarterback. But we changed the snap count. We got guys coming out of the backfield. We're going on different cadences, he's checking out of plays, into plays. I mean, let alone like then if we got to pass on, who's he reading in the coverage and all those things. And like that just goes on constantly during the game. And I really am, I'm always worried about that. Like, can he handle all this stuff? And he really does at a high level.
Running game, I know you've mentioned it many times how it takes a minute to get going and things like that. Was the plan though, even from in the summer and even before that, when you were kind of starting to get your game plans together, to just try to ease him into the season, and then knowing that you had this first game, Pac-12 game at Colorado, to really start to up the load and really start to get him more and more carries?
You talking about Jake?
No, I'm talking about Miles.
Oh, Miles. No, I don't think we were that specific. I mean, we're trying to come out and, we always want to run the ball, and, we're disappointed from game one if it doesn't look like we want it to, and it's not some like, okay, get him ready for the league. You know, we come out trying to do the best we can from the very start. But we do know it takes a minute. It's not ready-made. It's not like all summer long they're working on like how you can throw routes and timing and all those type of things. That's one of the things is hard, a little bit harder about the run game is you really can't start working on that until you show up and put some pads on and start getting that timing. You just know it takes a little bit of time, and that's one of the things that is really always kind of working in progress. And sometimes it's 2 steps forward, and the next game it's a step back. You know, the team really hunkers down, and we did this well, so they try to take that away, and then who's got the chalk last, try to come up with something different.
That's the 3rd time in 4 games you guys have started the second half with a touchdown drive. What do you attribute the faster starts to the second half to?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I'd be making stuff up and talking to talk. I mean, it's the same thing like coming out and not starting fast enough. I mean, we think we're going to come out. We make a few plans. I mean, I think it's a combination of a bunch of little things. You know, the guys settling down and taking some of the motion out of the game, and the guys maybe knowing how the guys play against them, and us kind of feeling like, hey, this is going to work. It's not any one thing.
The block punt,
Yeah.
sequence there with the play before, 2 plays before, Montez looked like he slid a little bit early before the line of scrimmage, and instead of 1st and 10, it's 4th and 1. You guys get the block. Did that feel like a pretty, even though it was earlier, kind of a critical moment in the game for you?
I thought the block punt was game changing. You know, I thought Quentin Pounce's play was like, wow, but I thought the block punt was game changing without question. And it was just, yeah, I mean, I love those plays when it's, you know, has to do with special teams and it's just like least expected. I mean, I wasn't even watching it. I just heard it. I was looking back at Dante, you know, to make sure he was lined up correctly. And I'm like, I'm thinking, do we have a block on? We're in safe punt. And then you kind of go back and you watch Jalen Johnson, the punt before, rush the punter and the effort that he gives. And then, you know, Vita did the same thing and got his hand on it, and Levi was right there as well. And, you know, it's a surprising game a lot of times.
So after the block, I think was it Levi that tried to pick up the ball and get into the end zone? Would you rather just have him fall on it, or if they think there's a chance to make a play and pick it up, are you?
Oh, you could see his reaction afterwards. You scoop and score for sure. There's certain type of fumbles that you just fall on. There's certain types that you try to scoop and go, and that was one. His footing wasn't good. He slipped a little bit. You know, I think he was overly excited and, you know, kind of realized he might have had a chance to. There was a guy right there, so I don't know how far he would have got, but that's one you probably do want to try to pick it up and go.
When you see situations like that, Chris, and you are surprised sometimes when things like that happen, can you attribute that to maybe a Dante Pettis type effect, where maybe their line is more focused on trying to get downfield to get after him, and maybe they start slipping a little bit in their keys?
You know, I think all that can matter. All that adds up. In that case, I don't think it had anything to do with it, because those guys that are protecting the punter, they're in there for just that purpose. They're not really trying to get out anytime soon, or they're just there to try to be a brick wall and not let any penetration happen. But when you got a, you know, 315-pound plus, I'll say that, to keep Vita happy, guy running at you full speed, that's a lot of mass that can knock brick walls down.
Another game, kept Jake clean. What'd you see of the pass protection?
Yeah, it was really good. Like I said, I thought our O-line played really well. You could see it probably most in the pass protection, because he was looking around a lot, took off once or twice, but it was just because maybe they're dropping guys in the coverage, and he was okay there. And then, you know, obviously later in the game, you saw the run game kind of come through. So I think the O-line did a nice job.
How have you seen Coleman Shelton after a while?
Who?
Coleman Shelton, after a while of sort of going from position to position, really settling in the center.
Yeah, Coleman's playing at a great level. I mean, he's every game he's played really, really well. For sure, one of the unsung heroes on our team. You know, lineman, offensive lineman. You know, the defensive lineman can kind of show up, but the guy right in the middle of everything, that's he's doing a really, really good job for us.
The throw between Jake and Pounds was about as good a throw and catch as you've had this year. What goes into that execution from the play call, the defensive circumstance, and the execution by both players to make something like that work?
Yeah, there's so much timing on that. So much confidence in that. It's so much repetition in that. Like I said, Quentin Pounds, he can go up and get the ball, and he does it many times in practice. This is not the first time that has showed up like that. I think he just has more to him. Quentin, I'm speaking of, he can do that much more than he maybe even does, but it shows up in practice, and you're splitting hairs. Those are awesome plays to watch when you're on the right side of things, because the defense was pretty good. They had a couple guys there, and Jake threw the ball only where Quentin could probably go get it, and Quentin had to go get it to make that play. That's fun football to watch.
Totally off topic. I know you love questions like this. You saw what happened in the NFL.
Yeah.
With all these protests. Have your kids talked about wanting to do anything like that at all? Would you be okay with that? Or?
We like I said, we usually talk a lot about those type of topics. We haven't talked about what has gone on in the NFL because it was just gone on. And we're not out for the national anthem, so that. But I know, like I say, our players are just like everybody else in the country in terms of the stuff that's going on right now, and very concerned, and it's just like everybody else. Everybody else is kind of going, wow, this is.
If the players approached you with a gesture that they'd like to make pre-game, how would you handle it?
I would always listen to those guys. Seems like every coach is doing the same thing. It's like, people care about what's going on in this country, not alone just in sports. And I think it's kind of interesting how strongly it's trickled, not the right word, but has come into now, football's at the center of all this stuff, which, hey, if it can help us change and grow and get better, awesome.
Do you have a criteria in mind about what would be allowable?
I have nothing in mind. I just always listen to our players and kind of go from there.
Speaking of pregame, Chris, did you consider joining some of your players that come out with your shirt off, maybe intimidate Coach McIntyre?
That would have been 1,000% the opposite. While they were taking theirs off, I was loading up layers. I was so happy when I went out there and the rain had stopped a little bit that I wasn't going to be freezing all game long. I can't tell you. It was I was really happy walking up and down the sidelines. Yeah, I don't know why they do that, but they do.
Whose idea is that? Is that Saha?
That is not Saha's idea. It's certainly the players, and I think it's a mindset thing that they want to go out there and none of this bothers me, and here we go.
Does it make you uneasy at all?
I have if it helps them play better and excited about going out there, maybe maybe they're too excited for taking their shirts off and we don't play well right away. Maybe we need to keep them on. I don't know, but at the end of the day, the one thing we can't always forget is why we do this. It's supposed to be fun, and we're supposed to have a great time with it. And if that's part of it, awesome.
Chris, what are your early impressions of Oregon State? You did play them Saturday.
I think one thing that's always concerned, we have 3 teams this year that have a bye in front of us. And no coach likes that because they're just sitting over there, tweaking their, really studying themselves, what they do well, what they need to clean up. And so it makes you better. And so they study, and then along that they study you for a couple weeks where we're just, last night getting into those guys. So I know this, they haven't done what they have wanted to do the first, how many games they played? 4. I got tremendous respect for Coach Anderson and his staff in terms of what type of football coach and how hard his guys play. I go put on the tape of how they played us last year, and it's a physical crew. Those guys run around. They're very multiple on all sides of the ball. And I know this. I mean, I say it, and our players know that, which is the most importantly. I mean, every week it's reload, reset, and get ready to play our best football, because if not, everybody sees what happens in college football. And it doesn't matter what anybody on the outside says. And so I know how hard and I know how much pride that those guys have and how hard they'll play us. And so that's what I look at when I study those guys. And we're still in the process of detailing things for sure. By the end of tonight, we'll have a good idea and plan of what we think our best stuff is against it. But that's what I think that they're a physical, tough crew, plays hard.
How tough is it to have kind of go through your regular routine, what you've done for the last 4 or 5 weeks, and then now add school into the mix?
So that is another thing that is a factor. I mean, it is a big factor. We've been talking about it for a couple weeks, that our schedule changes. You know, we're morning guys. It becomes even earlier now for us. And, you know, our guys just really have to be on it and detailed, because it can catch up to you. I mean, the game is about details, you know, so your life is about details. And if this detail and that detail is not on it, eventually it adds up very quickly. And so that's the message that we're always talking to these guys. But this week will be different for them for sure. And I hope in a good way. I think our guys are really ready to get back into the classroom and see some people besides their coaches in their lives, you know, some normal students. And it just, you know, it's different. And you can make a case for the quarter system or the semester system. I mean, I kind of like it when our guys, you know, start school and we start playing games and they're in the routine, and this is what we do. We kind of play about a third of the season or whatever and adjust and go.
Do you see that there's having even more structure, because their time is so valuable now when you have all those added things that they have to do? Does that show up on the field? I mean, does sometimes even having more structure end up allowing them to it has maybe a different effect?
Well, you know, everybody's got to operate in their certain way of doing business. You know, I think the more structure that we try to give these guys, the better it is. And then they got to make it work for them. But do I think that this thing can show up on the field? Without question. I mean, one of the hardest things for college kids to do is to get the proper amount of sleep. Now, we're talking about these elite athletes that really need probably 9 hours. Who gets 9 hours when they're in the middle of, and I think that's a huge thing. I think it's a really, really big thing. And so you equate that to being distracted with, you know, and I shouldn't say this, being distracted with a big game, a big midterm, a big quiz, all these things. It is really hard being, you know, a student athlete. I think I've said this a lot, that I think it's harder doing this than it is pro football in terms of organizing your life. And you got to be on it or it's going to catch up. And we see that a lot. It's like, what's going on with this guy? Well, what's going on? There's too much going on. Got to get organized.
Chris, where are you better right now?
What's that?
Where are you better at as a team in this point now than you were at this time of year? How are you a better team today?
Yeah, I don't know if we are. Are you talking about than last year?
Just period overall.
Yeah, I think we've grown from the first, you know, from our first game. You know, I think just playing games and, you know, maybe from a confidence standpoint of like, okay, this stuff works if I trust my coaching, my fundamentals, my techniques, you know, and just keep playing, and it doesn't always go right, and I just got to you know, all those type of things. I think we're better than we were game one. But that's the whole trick is, you know, if we're sitting here again a week from today and that same question, are we a little bit better? Man, I hope so, because you don't stay the same. You just don't. If you do, you're going south. We know that for sure.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, guys.